On today's episode, I discuss one of the Boston Mob's biggest and oldest myths, plus a new YouTube age myth. What's up, guys? Welcome back. Just making a quick upload here. I'm going to do it off the top of my head. I'm not writing a script for this. It's really mind boggling to me how many people still are so invested in the Whitey myth and tale and legend and want to defend him as like a person and argue. I just don't get it. There's like three main points that are especially kind of mind-boggling that just don't make any sense. There's really no argument to. I don't think there is. Like, people want to argue about so many people. Whitey wasn't a rat. Okay. Whether or not he actually gave the FBI credible information or any information at all doesn't really matter because he was on paper. He had an FBI file that said he was a top echelon confidential informant. So if you know anything about the criminal underworld on the streets or in prison, that's all that matters is you're on paper. So I'll talk more about that. But two, about his power base, his actual like status and the reach of his power. He was not the boss of Boston. He never ran Boston. Like I said, he was the boss of Southie. He might have had interest like outside of Southie. He might have had, extorted some bars and clubs and had certain little spots and outside of Boston too, and the metro area. And he extorted plenty of people doing illegal stuff outside of Southie as well. But like his power base was in Southie. It's always where it was. The two things that cut him above like a normal neighborhood crime boss, like that operating the rest of Boston, was the fact that one, his brother was the most powerful politician in the state of Massachusetts probably ever. But definitely when he was active, when Whitey was active, Billy Bulger was he was the top dog in Massachusetts politics. He was like the longest running state senate president ever. And two, he had John Connolly in his pocket, a special agent in the FBI, basically just running screens for him all day. Telling him who's informing, telling him who's working, with what agencies are looking into them. He's out there thwarting the agencies, throwing them off his trail. He's constantly like putting fake paperwork on other people, like saying that other people are doing stuff that Whitey's doing. Connolly was constantly putting misinformation into like the FBI, and so those are like those are really the only things that I'm sorry, like I don't understand why it's so hard for people to hear. Those are like the two things that made Whitey different. Besides that, he ran Southie. Like somebody was in the comments in one of the last videos I made. I just like a little tiny blip in the beginning of the video. I was saying about how like the Irish mob was kind of a media creation. There was never any criminal group in Boston that was exclusively Irish, and that why he wasn't as powerful as people say he was. And of course, somebody had to argue. I got kind of aggravated because one of the person's main points was saying that his headquarters wasn't even in Southie. It's like, come on, dude. Like he was in Lancaster Street for like a year after Winter Hill all went away because of the race fixing scandal with Fat Tony Shula there. And Whitey and Stevie were the only ones left off the indictment. And how nobody thought that was like such a red flag right there, so suspect, that these two guys who were always whispering to each other in the corner at Marshall Motors are now suspiciously left, the only two people left off the indictment, that the whole rest of the crew gets like taken off the street. Nobody saw it as a giant red flag. But anyways, But that was right after that happened. So they had to move. There's no Whitey and Stevie both. Stevie's from Roxbury. Whitey's from Southie. Why are they going to have the headquarters in Somerville? So they moved it to Lancaster Street in the West End. It's right next to the North Station and the Boston Garden. Right there. So, I mean, I know where it is. I used to go spark one up all the time back in the day before Celtics and Bruins games. Be like, whoa, look at that. It's Whitey's garage right there, man. You know? So I know exactly where it is, but that wasn't, it's like, dude, like, this guy, like, he ran his empire out of there, like, blah, blah, blah. It's like he was there for like a year before the Stadies found out about it and blew up his spot, and then John Connolly told him. And then they started talking on the bug about how great the state police, the Massachusetts State Police were, and the state police were like, man, they know we're listening. So, and then right after that, he went back to Southie. Operated at Triple O's, which used to be the Clean Spot Transit Cafe, became Triple O's. Kevin O'Neill ran it, the big heavy set dude ran it for them. And they had the office, and then they had the liquor store on the Rotary in South Boston. But he was out of Southie. All was like, dude. Why I understand it's like a really good story. It makes like Boston seem like something really like unique and blah blah. That this Irish guy was running. He had the mafia under his thumb and blah blah. But I'm sorry, man. It didn't happen like that. When I read Black Mass, I was like, whoa. I read it like over 20 years ago, whatever, when it was like a long time ago, and I was like, wow. I really thought Whitey was like this like ultimate mastermind. Like this guy is something. And don't get me wrong. I mean, to a certain extent, he really was. He definitely had a much higher level of intelligence than a lot of other criminals, and he, manipulated the crap out of people, and he was like psychological warfare. Like he used this stuff to his advantage. Like he loved to build up the whole. He was like a specter. Like people always heard his name, but nobody really ever saw him. And he was always, how does he know about everything? He always knows when people are working with the different law enforcement agencies. He knows when somebody's doing something. How does he know all this stuff? He's always, it's because he's got people in law enforcement working for him, dude. But like I understand, like people didn't understand this back in the day, so it psychologically must have been like, man, he's like everywhere and knows everything. But this builds to like the myth, but it wasn't true. It's just because John Connolly was feeding the information. Like I understand, like wanting to believe a really good story because it's a really good story, but if it's not true, it's not true. I don't know. That's that's like the real troubling thing, I guess, is just people want to debate like if it's like facts presented to you that this is the truth and you still can't like people can't accept that and they want to be nope and they want to tell like their own story that sounds good to them or the story that they've always been told and now that they're being told this is a lie. I know sometimes that's hard to accept, but it's just I don't get it. But and then so those like two things I was just talking about, I can kind of like have factual things to back it up. The next thing I don't really, it just kind of like personally just is so confusing to me is why people so many people want to like defend his character or like him as a man, like I can understand if you were from Southie and you're older and you knew Whitey personally, you had personal interactions with him. That's like a different story. So I didn't personally know the man. So if you knew him and you can see it from a different light and you say no, like that's not true, blah blah blah, and you have your own that's one thing. But the majority of people that are commenting on his character and like trying to defend him as a man and stuff, I'm almost pretty sure the majority of them have never met him before. So I don't understand why you're gonna take your energy that you could be putting on something else to defend a guy who, not even the fact that it's like he was an informer. Like I know a lot of people, because they don't like because of that. And in the criminal underworld, yeah, like he's trash because of that. But I'm not even saying that. Like, why would you defend him because he's a rat or whatever? I'm saying like, dude, the guy, he killed 2 women that we know of. And he didn't do it like, he did it with his bare hands, like in a very violent, vicious way. Yeah, I have 2 daughters. Like, to me, that's about as despicable as you can be, besides doing something else that I'm not even going to mention. Because I'll get, for sure, this video will be like trashed by YouTube. But to to do that like to not just one woman but 2 women, and it was like both civilians, like they were, because it was like Stevie's, he's like cleaning up after Stevie's like lust, because Stevie couldn't control his lust for these young women and stuff. Stevie was a skin hound, so Whitey's got to clean it up for him. But like it's like it seemed like Whitey like enjoyed it. He just seemed like, to me, he seems like kind of a sicko. He seemed like a creep. Like, yeah, was he like this somewhat of a mastermind, and did he pit all these different? He was like a master chess player kind of. Yeah, I'll give him that. But like to people want to defend like his cat. Whitey was blah blah blah. I don't know. Like I said, I didn't I never had any personal interactions with him, and maybe if I was from Southie and I was older and like I knew him personally, it would be different. But from the outside looking in, which is I feel like a lot of these people who are having forming these opinions are from the outside looking in, like I am. Like, why would you want to spend your energy defending someone like that? And not only that, too, but he like also extorted and terrorized like civilians, like tax-paying citizens, like out of their money and stuff and businesses. So I don't know. Like to me, that's not a good guy or a guy that deserves me like putting my energy out on like leaving comments being like, why he was this or why he was that. Like you don't know what you're talking about. Like maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. Maybe I'm just talking rubbish. It's okay. You can tell me that in the comments. I mean, I'm not really gonna lose any sleep over it. But it's just like a thing I see in general in society. I see people like it's like people like those are like they're heroes or something. Whitey isn't a hero. He's not. These people aren't stuff that I was like a susceptible youth at one time, like reading these books and stuff in Middleton jail as like a kid, like and like looking up and listening to stories these older guys telling me and stuff, being like, yeah, that's what you want to be. It's not, no, dude. I learned that real quick, like when I was 20 and I was in there for like the third time and I'd only been out for like 3 months total in like 3 years. I'm like, keep going back into Middleton. I'm like, nah, I don't. Yeah, by like 20, I realized this is not like the life. I don't think this is the life, man. You know, so like I think it's like a really messed up like not even a mixed message. It's just like a wrong message to be sending out like that these guys are like it's like almost like hero worship, and that's why I kind of like have change to a little spin. I'm making like a you guys can't see I'm making like a move with my hand like I made like a little turn with my content here because I feel like to a certain extent like I was feeding into this whole thing. It's on like it's almost like a culture on YouTube or online or just in general where it's like almost like hero worship with these people you've never even met in real life, you're probably never going to meet in real life, and they're really like what they're known for are not like good things, but it's like we're saying they're giving the message that it is, and it's like for young susceptible like kids like looking up to this stuff, I don't know, not it's dangerous for the young kids to be sending that message, and it's just irresponsible for adults to be feeding into it and contributing to sending that message, putting stuff out there that some young kid's gonna see and be like, wow, yeah, this guy is cool or whatever. I don't want to contribute to that. I'm just saying like I like know better. I try to put out these stories like unbiased and stuff like that, and not try to like hammer my personal opinions in on people. But when I keep seeing comments just defending Whitey and like other people and just the content I see out there just like praising these people and stuff, I think it's wrong. So that's why I mean I have a platform where I can voice my opinion whether or not people want to hear it. You can click on or click off, but it's just I don't know, it's messed up. And so back to about how White, people saying he's not a rat or this and that, he didn't rat or okay, like yeah, I agree. I don't really think he gave the FBI any information or any valuable information, but it don't matter. Certainly didn't matter to Freddie Gius when he showed up at Hazleton Penitentiary, that's for sure. Whether or not he actually gave the FBI information. So as we know now, the majority of the information that the FBI used that John Connolly was attributing to Whitey Bulger's folder and saying he was giving the FBI all this great information on the Italian Cosa Nostra, and this is why he has to be like our number one informant when everybody in the FBI is like, dude, this guy's bad. All these other agencies are trying to investigate him, blah, blah, blah. And John Connolly, he's giving us this great information. It was really Steve Flemmi. Steve Flemmi was the one giving all the information about the mob. He was the one that knew about the mob. He was the one that had connections with Bayonne and Angiulo. Whitey Bulger had nothing to do with the mob. Like when Flemmi was a younger guy back in the '60s, when the big conflict was going on, Al was trying to recruit him. They saw that this guy was intelligent, he was capable, he was an earner. They were trying to recruit him. When he was hanging out with Cadillac Frank a lot, Cadillac Frank was he loved Larry Zeno. He was like up his his rear end. But Steve Fleming really didn't want none of it. But they were trying to recruit him especially because he was 100% Italian, and Cadillac Frank's only half. He's half Irish. So we know now that pretty much all the information that the FBI was acquiring and attributing to Whitey Bulger was in fact from Steve Fleming. And then they also had Sonny Mercurio as well giving them information. But the point is Whitey Bulger, yeah, he probably didn't give the FBI, he certainly didn't give them really much information or any good information. He probably didn't even give them any information. I really believe it was a one-way relationship, and John Connolly was feeding him all the information. FBI, Whitey wasn't an FBI informant. John Connolly was more of a member of his crew. But this is where it comes down to. People need to accept this. With that being said, with me acknowledging that yes, Whitey Bulger probably didn't give them any real information or good information. You probably didn't even give them any information. But that doesn't matter. In the criminal world, on the streets and in prison, if you are on paper, then you are considered a rat and an informant. Whitey Bulger had an FBI file. He was a top echelon confidential informant for the FBI. He had paperwork on him. He had a file. This was decades long. It doesn't matter if he actually gave them information. Like, I don't think people understand that. When you go to prison, if you have paperwork on you, you're a rat. It doesn't matter if you I'm sure there's people with paperwork on them that never ratted ever. It's like the police are trying to screw with them, or they're trying to protect someone else or whatever. I'm sure it happens. I'm sure people have to go into PC and they have to fight or whatever, and they never even ratted. And on the other hand, I'm sure there's tons of rats out there walking around that don't have paperwork on them. And so just because there's nothing in paperwork, that they're able to live in general population and walk the streets because there's nothing in writing. But those are the rules. As far as I know, those have always been the rules. When I went away, the first time I went to jail in 2001, those were the rules then. I was nervous because I was going to jail, and I knew that the only problem I had with anybody, the kid was going to be there in jail. And he tried to rob my friend in the back of my car. He pulled out a big butcher knife. It was this huge debacle. My friend grabbed the knife and sliced his hand. So anyways, the police had me in a back room grilling me for hours. And I just kept saying, we picked up my friend. It was my friend Andrew's friend. I don't know him. He said, can we pick my friend up? He was walking on the street. I just kept saying I didn't know the kid. My friend Andrew said it was his name. So I knew that I didn't say anything, so I knew from a paperwork standpoint, cause that's what the people explained to me when I got to jail. They're like, well, did you say anything about the kid? And I said, no. They kept asking me what happened. Like, well, as long as there's no paperwork on you, you're fine. If you didn't say anything and there's no paperwork on you, you're fine. And on the other hand, in jail, if you accuse somebody of being a rat, if you call somebody out and say they're an informer, and you don't have paperwork to back it up, then you're in trouble. That's a big problem. You don't do that. So this kid ended up seeing me. I was out playing basketball in the courtyard in the middle of Middleton, if people know what Middleton jail looks like. And he was in the hole. I'm not going to say his name because he's a crazy bastard, period. But he was in the hole, and he could see me playing basketball in the court, and he started yelling out my name and saying I was a rat. So I'm like panicking. But then the older guys, this was back in 2001 when there was actually some order in Middleton, like the older white guys and Yetas and stuff like that. So they said, do you have any paperwork on you, blah, blah, blah. I said, no. I told them the truth. They sat me down. They talked to us. The kid, he couldn't produce paperwork on me because there wasn't any. I never said the kid's name. I told the cops I have no idea who it was. My friend Andrew had like 30 stitches in his hand, so he was pretty pissed, so he gave the kid's name. But I didn't. So this kid who ended up accusing me got himself in trouble. It's the point I'm trying to make is, in the prison and criminal world, paperwork is what matters. Nothing else matters. If you actually ratted, if you didn't actually rat, doesn't really matter. All that matters is the paperwork. Whitey Bulger had papers on him. All that mattered. He could say up and down, I never ratted, and he might have been telling the truth. He might have never told them nothing. He probably didn't. It was like I said, it was a one-way information highway. It was John Connolly giving him all the information. He was working for Bulger, basically, not for the FBI. So, I mean, I don't know what else. Like, I'm basically I'm over it at this point. Like as far as the criminal rules, that the way that they're stated, he's an informant. He's a rat. Don't matter if he said anything or not. He, like I said, he probably didn't, or whatever he did was probably whatever. Flummy was the one giving all the information on the LCN. So that's old. I guess it's basically it can be opinion based about how powerful he actually was. But I mean, dude, like when the guy said like his base was out of Lancaster on the west end, his base wasn't even in Southie. Come on, man. There's a tiny blip on the radar of Whitey's thing. He was always in Southie. His power base was always out of Southie. Like I said, he had John Connolly in his pocket. His brother was Billy Bulger, the most powerful state politician, probably in Massachusetts history. So obviously, this gives him a leg up on everyone else. Was the guy like an anomaly? Is it a great story regardless? Just the fact of how he used it, like that's what I'm saying. Like just the story, when you just as the facts as they are, it's still a crazy story. It's still a great story, and Boston's still even if like it wasn't like this one Irish mobster who had the whole city sewn up. He had the Italian Cosa Nostra under his thumb. Even if it wasn't that, it still is a great story, and Boston still is one of the most unique cities. There's no other city like Boston, especially the way the underworld is. The way that there was the Italian LCN that was so strong and still, hey, you know this, hey, it's still around, hey, but they're so strong. You got Winter Hill, you got all this stuff going on, and then you got like I made the videos about all the crews in like Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan, the South End back in the late 80s and 90s, and like the war zones that was going on down there. And then Chinatown was out of control. You know, they had the big thing that happened in 1991 in Chinatown. There's so much stuff that like has gone on in Boston. Like you don't need the Whitey myth to make Boston. Like there's so much other stuff to talk about. That's why I started this channel, started doing these videos, is like to start telling some of these stories that I would always be looking on YouTube and looking online to watch some like good stuff that I know like happened in Boston. I'm like, why didn't anybody talk about this? Why isn't there any videos about it, dude? That was crazy. I remember that. Like, why is nobody? And you keep seeing the same old stuff over and over again. So like that's why a big reason why I started making the video. And like I don't really talk that much about Whitey and stuff. I used to talk about him and stuff. I mean, he's a part of Boston history, but it's like it's not the whole. It's just I don't know. There's so much other stuff to talk about. But I just had to like kind of like just say something about all these people defending Whitey and all the like they still want to like rah 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 rah. It's just like come on, boys. And then for like another thing is I'm gonna title this biggest myths, and so I'm not just saying just about Whitey. So that's another thing. So I'm saying like when I'm searching online looking for stuff, like then all of a sudden I don't know if it was what 2 or 3 years ago he was kind of big, was like when I started seeing like this Bobby Luisi. I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, I knew I like remembered the name, that the name sounded familiar, but I'm like, the boss of Boston. Wait, how did I miss this? Like, when was this guy the boss? Like, he had his little show with Paulie Tonzo, and I never heard of Paulie Tonzo either before. And I'll just say that this, like, I've never met Bobby Luisi. I don't know him personally, and I'm not gonna pick on him too much because the guy's like, dude, he's making videos about like his content's about like the Bible and stuff now. I kind of just I don't want to pick on the guy. Just let him be, leave him alone. But I just need to address it because a lot of people do ask me and then ask me to make videos and they're like, what's the real deal with Bobby Luisi and stuff like that? And that's another Boston myth, and it's been created through YouTube and through the internet, and that's like a new stage of like Whitey was like an old school myth before like all YouTube and stuff. But Bobby Lucy is like a YouTube generated myth. I feel like when that DJ Vlad interview dropped, it kind of like people were like, what? Who is this guy? I think that video was good. I don't know if it's over 1 million views or it's close. It got a lot of views, so he got a lot of exposure with that. But like I said, I never met him before. I do know Paulie Tonzo. I have a personal relationship with Paulie Tonzo. I didn't know him at first when I saw him in the videos with him and stuff. I'm like, who's this guy? I never heard of him. But I'll say like a lot of people will like kind of talk smack about Paulie or say bad stuff about Paulie or whatever. He's from what I know him, he's a really nice guy, and I think deep down he's got a good heart. I can't say anything bad about the guy. But the thing with Bobby Luisi is um, it's like I was like, where this name familiar? And I remember the name from his brother and his father at the Charlestown 99 from when the terrible crime that happened there. So first off, Well, first off, first off, if you haven't seen my video about the Charlestown 99 situation, go back and watch it. It's an early video of mine, so my early videos are kind of rough to listen. I can't listen to them now; they make me cringe. But if you want, if you're interested about that situation, I have a lot of good details in it. I'll say that at least. There's a lot of good detailed information about that you won't find other places. Okay, so that's firstly first, because I got to at least plug myself, right? But secondly first. Uh, what happened at the 99 Charlestown 99, was nothing to do with the whole Cadillac Frank 90s conflict where, him and the two factions are fighting with each other. Had nothing to do with that. It was a personal situation between the Luisis and the Clementes. Roman Luisi and Bobby Luisi Sr. were telling Damian Clemente, stop doing what he's doing in the North End. Stop. He wasn't allowed to sell. They were harassing him. His father, Anthony, they kept going back and forth. He's saying, leave my son alone, blah, blah, blah. And then it came to a head. It was a personal family squabble. It had nothing to do. I've heard other YouTube people saying it's a talks. It's a thing from the. No, it's not. It had nothing to do with that conflict. It was a personal family beef between two families. It was Anthony Clemente trying to protect his son. In my opinion, with very excessive force, and he probably should have just taken a step back from it. But whatever. He thought what he was doing was right. He was trying to protect his son. It was a family situation between two families. It had nothing to do with organized crime. Absolutely nothing. Not say, I shouldn't say absolutely nothing, because Damien was how it rooted was because Damien was doing stuff and they were telling him he couldn't do it. So there was like a hint of it, but like why it came to that, it wasn't like you can't account those casualties to part of like the Cadillac Frank War. You can't. So let me just say that. So secondly, okay, so that's how I knew Bobby Luisi's name. That's how the name rang familiar. I remember the Luisi name because his father and his brother, Roman and Bobby, lost their lives that day. Anthony and Damian Clemente are doing life in prison because of it. So it's the only thing I really had heard of him. So when I watching this video, because he made a video about the 1990s conflict. I've always been really interested in that, clearly, because I made a video about it and I have this channel now. So clearly I've always been interested in that stuff. And I was like, nice, somebody's actually making a YouTube video about it. And then this guy's on there talking about how he was like the boss and stuff, and they weren't really talking about anything that really happened. Like, I'm not going to criticize this stuff too much, but anyway, so I'm like, wait a minute, I was confused. I'm like, who is this guy? I've never really heard of him. So basically, uh, how do I say this? Like, he's kind of like he's created his own myth. So let me just say what I know, because people are interested. People ask. Usually, I think it's mostly people from outside the area because they've seen him on YouTube and they're like, "Who's this guy?" Yeah, because he was kind of big there for a little bit. He got like a lot of exposure with that DJ Vlad interview. So he had to go out of town to get, so he was like, said he was working legitimate construction, blah blah blah, and then the housing market sank, and he put a piece in he said some wicked corny, like, I put a piece in the back of my pants and I hit the streets or something like that. But so he couldn't get made up here for whatever his story is. He had to go to Philadelphia and get in with like Joey Molino and those guys, and to get his button and to get like his guys and his crew squared away. So right there off the top, that's really weird, right? Why would you have to go to another city to get straightened out? If so, anyways, whatever. I don't really care about that. So that's what I'm saying. That's kind of like suspect. That's why he doesn't really have much of a name, and or you wouldn't be mentioned with circles in the Boston or New England area because he got made in Philadelphia. So then he comes back to Boston. So he didn't really operate that long. He was on the Salemi faction side, and he was against, like, I know he had a big beef with the Paul DiCollegiero, who went away, and he's part of like the whatever. I'm not gonna even talk about that guy. But so he did like have some stuff going on the street. Like, I'm not saying like he like everything's a total lie. Like, he was like active or whatever. He got caught up in this like Rico case that had to do with the Peruvian stuff, and I think there might have been like there was like a body attached, and that's where he started panicking. But so he started making his show, started to get some notoriety, and then I think like what happened was some people started having like a problem with him. Uh, talking about stuff and just him in general, just being up on a platform like that and talking the way he was talking and presenting himself the way he was presenting. Because Bobby Luisi cooperated with the federal government. That's basically what I'm trying to clarify here. So he likes to say like I was gonna cooperate, and then I decided like I didn't want to do it, and I didn't go through with it, so I didn't cooperate. I didn't inform. I'm not. I hate like saying rat. Like I hate like throwing jackets on people and saying words like that, whatever. But I'm just apparently it really matters like whether or not to some people it really matters. There's so many mob channels that it's all about just about exposing informers and stuff like that. So people I know, and there's actual paperwork about it, grand jury testimony, and he like was discussing Enrico Ponzo and different things like that. And so what happened is he initially entered like an agreement to work with the federal government. He panicked. He didn't want to go away for the rest of his life. Because like he was, I don't. To me, the guy is not like a. He's not a hardened criminal who's just like about that life. Like he worked in the construction before. He only really started dabbling in stuff because the construction market tanked. You see how he is now. Like he instantly switched like his content over to doing like I'm not even hating on him for doing like this Bible stuff, and I think he's even like an ordained minister and stuff like that. So like that's whatever, man. That's he's doing positive stuff. Like I'm not gonna hate anybody for doing positive stuff, but I'm just saying like the informant status that was attached to him was like legitimate. He was work. He didn't want to do the time or whatever the reason he did. He was gonna strike a deal with the government. The federal government ended up dropping him from the deal because very soon after he entered into the deal, they began doing like the proffer agreements and like actually getting down to the meat and potatoes of everything. Him giving him the information, he started to go through some psychological stuff. I don't know exactly what happened to him. He claims it was like he had a spiritual awakening and like the Lord came to him and this and that. Other people who like saw him during that time period say like one day he like woke up and he like had a shaved head. He's walking around with a Bible and a shaved head and he's quoting Bible courses, Bible verses and everything. Like, this guy's lost his mind. And apparently the federal government thought the exact same way. And so this guy is bots and said, they dropped him. They said, well, he's not a credible witness. Nobody's going to believe him. So they dropped him. So that's why the deal fell apart. It wasn't like he had a change of heart. So I can't do that. I can't turn my back to the streets. It wasn't like an undying loyalty to the streets that swayed him from. Uh, I can't work with the government. I can't turn my back on the street. It wasn't like that. It was the federal government said this guy's not a credible witness. Nobody's gonna believe him. He's kind of lost his mind. Something happened to him. He had a psychological break or something. And prison messes with people's heads. It's not if you've never been to prison before and then you're in prison, just going there first of all will be like a culture shock and will like it can actually break some people. But then the not only that initial like culture shock, but then if you're faced with like a long lengthy like decades or years upon years, that it breaks a lot of people. So he had most likely had some sort of psychological break, whatever. I'm not going to judge a guy. I'm not going to judge anybody for stuff I know. I'm not going to judge people. How am I trying to say this? Like if I haven't walked in their shoes, I'm not gonna. I try not to judge them. But these are the facts. Like somebody sent me stuff before. Like if you guys want, I can do it. I can do a detailed video about him and present all the facts and the grand jury testimony about testifying about Enrico Ponzo and this and that. But I mean, I would personally just rather not like pick on the guy, make a video like boom, put his face up there, and I don't know, I might put him on the thumbnail for this. But anyways, I'm just saying like I don't want to make a. It's not in my wheelhouse to be like I want to go make a video to pick on Bobby Luisi. Maybe when I first started the channel because I was more into kind of mocking people and kind of trying to be funny. But I have like a weird twisted sense of humor, and now I realize that you can't just put everything out on the internet and people expect strangers on the internet to understand how you are psychologically who've never met you and just like I'm only joking. So I really have like fallen back from the being like a wise guy and mocking people. I still do a little bit, but so I don't want to like pick on the guy, but if you guys like are like, oh, I want to know more about this, or people are gonna say that I'm just like talking smack and this isn't true, like no, he did. Like he was gonna work with the government. It was all set up, but something happened to him. He had like I said, like a psychological break. I don't know. I don't want to like. I like Paulie. Me and Paulie have talked, and Paulie has told me some stuff. But like he's Bobby sought Paulie out as like a friend. Like everybody hates me, nobody wants to talk to me. Everybody thinks I'm a rat. Like please, will you be my friend? And Paulie's a nice guy. He's got a big heart. you felt bad for the guy, so that's why he like kind of let him back in. That's my understanding of the whole situation. And then he started, I think it was like the Isabella Gardner heist. Like they got a lot of press interest into that, and his name got brought up, you know, because that's like a big time mystery. That would actually be a very good topic for a video. I've wanted to do that for a while, but that's how I think his name got brought into like the press's wheelhouse, and they started doing interviews. And then that DJ Vlad interview blew up, and he was smart. He capitalized on it. He got on the YouTube, and people love that stuff. You know, they want to hear guys who are in the life talk about it, blah blah blah. But it's like you have to be, if you're gonna do it and present it that way, you really got to be what you're saying you are. Like that's why, like I've never ever when from any point in this like this experience making this channel, like I'll share some of my personal experience and say like, yeah, you know, I've struggled with substance abuse and I've been to jail and stuff like that, but I don't present myself at all as like a thug or a person that's from this lifestyle whatsoever. I'm a spectator. I'm just like I know this is probably like a bit much, but I do kind of see myself as like a half kind of half how do I want to say it? I see myself as somewhat of a journalist. I know that's giving myself like a lot of credit, but I think like this is just kind of like a fun video for me to just kind of be like, dude, what do all these people like want to always argue about Whitey and defend Whitey when like the facts are right in front of them? And then also people do ask a lot about Bobby Luisi, and I feel like that's another big Boston mob myth. So I just wanted to make kind of a quick video about this, but usually like when I do my true crime documentary styles, it's like very, very thorough research. I try to reach out to people that are actually involved or have firsthand knowledge information. I like write the scripts. I like edit stuff. So I do kind of see myself as somewhat of I'm making quotation marks, man, journalist, but so I don't present myself as like because a lot of these guys are like, I'm from the life and now you know, and a lot of people get caught. Like if you're not really about that, you can't present you like people will buy it for a little bit at first, but then like it always comes out in the wash. Like that's what I'm talking about, the truth, you know, the truth shall set you free. Like the truth is the truth. That's like the main theme of this video. Like, yes, I'm talking about Boston mob myths and I'm trying to display like two of the biggest, like the biggest one by far is Whitey. Whitey is by far it's like the ultimate Boston myth. But Bobby Luisi is kind of like a new age YouTube era Boston myth. And I'm sorry, the guy, I do think he's a genuinely decent human being. I don't think he's a bad guy. I just think that he saw an opportunity, he seized it, he went about it kind of the wrong way. He should have been 100%, should have been authentic. And it came back to bite him in the butt. And now his channel is, you know, like I said, he does Bible content, and nobody really watches it because nobody's interested in that stuff. I mean, there's a lot of people that watch Christian stuff, but they don't really want to watch some like ex-con. I don't want to talk about it. Now I'm kind of just being mean. I'm sorry. I apologize if I personally to Bobby Luis. I apologize if you know I don't mean to pick on you. I really don't, and I wish you well. And I'm glad you found the Lord and you're doing your thing on YouTube. But I just people want to know, and that is the truth. You know, he got dropped from his deal by the feds. He was going to cooperate. They dropped him. He didn't drop them, and he did. There's grand jury minutes on him. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Very like different than what I've been doing lately, but it's just mind-boggling, guys. Like, come on. Like, all I'm saying is like, just invest your energy in something that's more worthwhile instead of defending a person like Whitey, who is just not. He wasn't a good guy. Bottom line, he wasn't a good guy. Like, maybe you have a personal relationship with him and you think he was a good guy and you like, screw this kid, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Okay, screw me then, because I don't know what I'm talking about. I never had a personal relationship with him. But from the outside looking in, people shouldn't be hero worshiping him or other people they do. And come on, guys, if you're out there creating content, think about the kids that are going to be watching your stuff. And then think about the message you're putting out there. Don't be like talking about these guys like they're like where it's at, because they're not. Like, they're not, man. You don't want to be spending the rest of your life sitting in a prison cell, or you don't want your life ended early, because that's a possibility too, you know, when you enter this life. But hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm done squawking at you. If you liked it, hit that like button. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Most of all, though, make a good choice. Make good decisions. Take good care of yourself, your friends, your family, your fellow human beings. Try to have a nice day, guys. I'll talk to you soon, and God bless.